Welcome into the Kings Beat podcast. I'm James Ham, Kings Insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. We are, of course, a Blue Wire podcast brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Today, I am joined by Box 40s, Sean Cunningham. Sean, how are you?
James, Brenden, listener, viewer, I am tremendous. Just tremendous. I cannot tell you how tremendous. I mean, I can't even paint a better picture than that. I am through the moon happy to be here with you guys. And yeah, as we
sensing
record
sarcasm
this
there,
on
Sean?
nope. This is elation. This is joy on my face right now. So yeah. We're doing great today. How are you guys?
Wow, that's interesting. We are, of course, I'm doing okay, Sean, but we're also joined by Brenden Nunes from the Kings Pulse podcast.
Which
Brenden.
podcast?
A couple. Yeah,
Sorry,
I'm
James.
doing well.
I like making it awkward for you.
It's fine.
I apologize.
I don't blame you.
It's like I apologize, but I'm not sorry. You know, there's
Honestly,
not
Sean,
sorry.
every time he says it, I look at your face because I expect a reaction from you.
yes,
So,
fantastic.
fair enough, and I think it's well warranted. But I'm
Where's your-
doing well.
Where's your podcast candle, Brenden? Because I know James doesn't partake.
This
one
I
is.
think I
this
have
is
one
extra
over
hot.
here. We have a cactus blossom candle, a
Cactus
little
blossom.
3-wick.
Yeah.
What do you got there, Sean? Now you have this very lovely glow to your
Lovely
face,
glow?
Sean. Yeah.
Should mean that I need to shave. I have to shave. It's called Warm and Welcome. It's
Lame.
not my favorite brand, but I really like the scent of this one. So this
Warm
one
and
actually,
welcome. That does not feel like Sean Cunningham at all.
I am
No,
I
it
am the
does
most
not.
welcome.
Cold and prickly. That's what where's the cold.
Salty and bitter.
Wow, that's how you guys. Someone put in the comment section, the viewer, not the people that know me like these two jackasses, but I want to know what the listener and viewer thinks of me. I mean, this is probably opening up a whole Pandora's box.
great
of what I
idea.
want
Are
you to
you
do.
asking?
But
Great
Sean?
idea.
from a I don't know, personality standpoint, if you will, listener, I don't know that they would view me the same way. But this comes from Goose Creek, not a an endorsement, but hey, Goose Creek, it could be, huh? Hit me
There
up.
it is.
I know a clearance candle when I see one.
No, how dare you?
Just saying.
I'm not against clearance candles, by the way, especially with some of those. What did Bed Bath and Beyond used to do? It was like the once or twice a year where they you do like the super candle kind of sale. I forget the name of it. I gotta find out. But
Super
that's
candle. I'm not.
Yeah, well,
super Bed Bath
it's
Beyond.
like a super candle sale, like where it's not like one candle. It's a super candle. It's just you can get all these ones for way cheaper than they are normally. But did you know like Bed Bath and Beyond is like closed everywhere? This is news to me because I thought they were still open.
I think they're one of those businesses that open and close and open and close, and you never know if they're going out of business or not.
I'm just trying to get to Beyond.
Well played.
Okay.
All right.
Well played.
I think you do that almost every single day with your recreational.
Sean, you hint at this way too much. First of all, second, no comment.
Got you.
Wow.
We have somebody in the happy hour that's my favorite person every time. By the way, if you know what I'm talking about.
Oh
He
yeah.
does-
Yeah.
I know
leads
what
into
you're
that,
talking
yeah.
about.
No
we
shit.
do need
No
we need to
shame.
have a happy hour. We'll have a happy hour as soon as the season's over. We'll have a happy hour. It's
Not
just,
virtual though.
I will say, I think we have a lot to say in a happy hour.
we do. We have a
lot
few
that's
things that we can
happened.
talk about.
I always have things we can talk about. Are you
Yeah.
talking about
Show
Kings
up.
things? You're talking about actually Kings things?
Yeah.
Oh.
Ideally, I think that we're a Kings podcast.
It is off the record with the Kings Beat virtual happy hour.
Most of the time, I'm talking about stuff that isn't even Kings related. So
That's true. That's true.
yeah.
Let's get to this. Number one, if you're watching here on YouTube and you don't mind, we'd love it if you give us a thumbs up. That would be amazing. Also, subscribe to the channel. Go to thekingsbeat.com, become a subscriber, jump on board with the premium subscription to support what we do here. Let's see. Outside of that, we've got tons of basketball to talk about. We have basketball and basketball adjacent things to talk about. Things are wild and crazy and all over the board here We have 9 games left in the season. Sean has some sort of box that he's opening up.
What's in the box?
Decided this is an unboxing episode.
What's in the
Yeah,
box?
Brenden has no idea what that reference is from.
No,
I do.
What's in the
7. I've
box?
seen 7.
Awesome.
Is it 7?
Wow, yes,
Yep.
it is. It is 7.
Okay,
You're
there we
growing
go.
up. I didn't want to forget this, and I knew if I didn't do it right now, I'd forget. So I wanted to, in case those who weren't able to. Oh, God damn it! Hold on a minute.
I don't even know what's
The
happening.
trophy
here.
for the worst takes of the year last season.
What was my?
It's a
I
Razzie.
don't have takes. Do I have takes?
You have a podcast, sir. Of course you have takes.
What is happening here?
This is
I don't even know what's.
from everywhere. Hey, whoever designed this beautiful. Oh no!
Oh,
it
great.
broken?
Not so beautiful anymore.
I think it fucking broke. Oh,
For the
break.
Can you let the audio listeners know what's going on here?
There. Sorry, guys.
audio listeners,
Poor
Sean has
Keon
been
Ellis'
opening a
head
box
fell
here
off.
for at least
This didn't
like
go as smooth as it should
45
have.
seconds. Just like
Now I know
yours.
why I got this one because it's broken.
Oh no!
This is the Keon Ellis bobblehead.
Oh.
What? Where did you get that?
Well, we covered the Stockton
Yeah,
game
Stockton
the other day, and our guy, I wasn't there, but our guy Andrew Marden, the sports. Oh, look at this! How creepy! Let's put it right behind the microphone. Yeah, our guy Andrew Marden over at Fox 40, the sports director, he snagged it, but that's why I got this one. I think because it's broken, but that's what it looks like.
There we go.
I saw it in the locker room. I did see it in the locker room, in Keon's his locker stall.
He was. I got to talk to him a little bit about it, and he was happy with it overall.
I think it's a good likeness.
Over here.
Oh, all right.
I also have
Okay.
the Vladi one. Someone gave me the Vladi one from the Power Market thing. I don't know if anyone's seen that one, but
I have all of the old bobbleheads.
yeah, the Carl's
All-
Jr. ones.
Yeah, all of them. Yep.
Look at that. Is that the Power Market one?
It is little
From
buck
last year?
Evan right here. Yeah.
Wow.
Evan, big shot in yesterday's phenomenal close for Chicago.
Oh wow, look at this. You guys
Just
just
flexing
keep
bobbleheads. That's all I
pulling
got.
out
I only got the one.
bobbleheads.
So this Vladi one looks a lot younger than the one that he actually did in the Carl's Jr. one like 25 years ago. So
That's true.
yeah, there's Vladi. And
Boy, I hate to tell you guys this, but if for the audio viewer, like bobbleheads don't actually show up on when you're listening via audio.
You have to,
So
like make the noise to really simulate it. You know, like
Yeah.
a little. There you go.
Oh,
You
you
did
go.
it perfect.
that's what
Well,
that sounded like. You're right,
An
Sean.
ASMR podcast.
and I can't do it with Keon because his head is broken. But you know,
Oh well. Pause. Let's move on.
No comment.
Oh boy. Let's just start with the Blazers game because I think there's some really interesting stuff that happens there. Before we actually can start with the Blazers game, we have to start with what happens right before the Blazers game, which might be one of the strangest things that I've seen happen in a while. What happened? First of all, just like so people understand, everything in pregame is kind of scripted, right? At every day at 5:15, we're supposed to get the head coach of the Sacramento Kings. With Doug, it's been about 5:20, 5:22 that we get Doug Christie. He's always a few minutes late. And then at 5:30, what's that?
like me.
Yeah,
Oh,
same
and
here.
definitely Brenden. Brendan's been late lately. At 5:30, we get the visiting coach in a different room, which is like literally smaller. I mean, it's like a closet, and it's very uncomfortable. Then we go from 5:45 to 6:15. We get locker room access to both locker rooms, but typically Sean and I go into the home locker room. And then after that, at 6:30, we typically get via Twitter a notification that the Kings PR account sends us the starting lineups. The starting lineups, you guys have seen them. If you follow us on Twitter, it's just a one sheet. It has both team starting lineups, inactives, who's the officiating crew, the team they're playing, all that stuff. You guys have seen them. So we usually, like with myself, I usually just copy that. I throw it into a tweet and say starters, and I put it out there, right? Exactly. Brenden is showing it for those of you who are audio listeners.
Which, funnily enough, they deleted the other games one.
Say that again? Oh, they did.
Yeah, they did get rid of the Portland one.
Okay, so
Did you
we
say
get to the
funnily enough?
Yeah, is that not how you say that?
No, just funny enough.
funny.
All right, close enough.
Sorry,
Thanks
no,
for
I was just,
pointing it out.
yeah, no, sorry, buddy. I'm
God,
it just
what was
caught-
the
I
candle
was like,
that you're just absolutely not?
warm and welcome.
Yeah, not very warm and
Cold
welcome.
and prickly.
Jeez, yeah.
So just to continue on with the story,
Go ahead.
first and foremost,
This gonna take long?
2 games ago, we did not get our starting lineups at all. Then yesterday, we're sitting there waiting for the starting lineups, and it doesn't show up. It doesn't show up at 6:30 like it's supposed to. And basically, the teams have to have their starting lineups into the NBA office by 6:30. And basically, it's both teams, and it's signed by both coaches, and it's sent out. So we get to like, what was it? Maybe 6:58, and we get a starting lineup from the Sacramento Kings that has Malik Monk, DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, Keegan Murray, and Domantas Sabonis. Right. Then we look down on the court, and the opening of the game happens. And Scott Moak does his starting 5 for the Sacramento Kings. He once again announces Malik Monk as the starting point guard. And exactly what we had seen on the sheet that we got, right? And then all of a sudden, Keon Ellis walks out onto the court and he starts the game. And it's like, what's going on? Why is Keon Ellis starting the game? So I don't know what exactly happened here. If it was some sort of snafu or whatever with the Kings media relations staff or someone, but this is not something that typically happens. We typically don't wait until 3 minutes before the game starts to get the starting lineup. All of this is weird.
Have you guys
And
ever seen anything like this?
no,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's happened. That's
Well,
not
we
it
had-
hasn't happened.
we had a situation earlier in the season where they sent out a starting lineup and then had to send out another starting lineup that was different. They said, "Hey, there was an error," but not like this where the starting lineup is the starting lineup. The announced starting lineup is not who's on the court, and away we go.
It was funny to talk to Malik after the game about it because he's like, yeah, I was always coming off the bench. And I was like, so you're just playing the part of going. He's like, yeah, I just got up and went through player intros, and he might as well. I didn't want to leave anyone hanging, so yeah, it was pretty funny.
Yeah, I think on the broadcast they showed Keon Ellis like go and give high fives as well. So just a strange situation, but it appears that we're, it's like, I don't know, sort of like a quarterback controversy in the NFL, but it feels like we have gone full circle here, and Keon Ellis might be the starting guard, and Malik Monk might be coming off the bench again. Where are you guys at with this? Because we asked plenty of questions in post game, and it definitely was kind of a weird situation.
Go ahead, Brenden.
It definitely was. I would say the quotes that stood out most from Doug is at first he was talking about, he said, quote, trying to work Malik back in, make sure he's comfortable and feeling good, end quote. But kind of as he was asked more about it, eventually he got to the point where the quote was, Malik in a 6-man role is spectacular because he can come in and be aggressive the way that I want him to. And, that definitely perks up ears. I think you have to take into account that they were facing the Trailblazers. I think they've been a significantly better team against below 500 opponents and taking care of business more often than not in that aspect, but struggled against the better teams. And obviously Portland is in the former there. But it's not just, Malik functioning better in that second unit. I don't know that it's a coincidence that Zach LaVine was very comfortable in that first unit as well. And we saw him be more aggressive. And I think that's something that him individually needs to embrace a little bit more, and playing with pace played a factor in all of that. But it almost feels like DeMar DeRozan is kind of becoming that pseudo point guard on this team. He's had, I want to say, nearly 30 assists over the last 3 games. 2 of the last 3 have been double-digit assist nights, including 10 assists against Portland. And so I think that, the too many cooks in the kitchen thing gets sorted out a little bit in this sort of lineup change. And it sounds like something that they will at least consider moving forward here. So I think it makes sense, and something that the fan base has definitely been saying that they feel like should be contemplated for a little while now. And seems like we're at that point.
Sean?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's I think a lot of it had to do with Malik's conditioning coming off of the illness. I mean, I know it was 3 games, but it was really like kind of over a week. It seemed like that he had this illness. And in talking to him last night, first thing he says, "I'm tired," and he didn't even play that many minutes. And so, I think that is a one-off. Now, I'm not saying that he won't be back in the starting lineup or he's going to continue to stay on the bench. Whichever way they go, if he's coming off the bench, he better be just like Keon Ellis was in playing starter minutes. And that's why, to me, I've always said I don't care which one starts. But both of them have to play starters minutes, in my opinion, regardless if they're starting or coming off the bench. And last night in the win over Portland, it was under 20 minutes. And even Doug made reference of that, but they were also kind of watching him too because of coming off the illness, having the conditioning, and him obviously just kind of being tired. Now, to his credit, I think he played really well. Obviously, the turnovers were a little bit of a problem. They have been since he's been kind of figuring out the starting point guard role. And I think I've always said, like, this goes back to when Mike Brown was head coach. It didn't matter to me if Malik Monk was coming off the bench or starting. I said I know of all the people on that roster, he understands his role the most, and having him as a 6th man to me just made the most sense. I didn't think you have to put him in the starting lineup, despite him wanting to. He'll always say he wants to, but he's down for whatever is best for the team. That doesn't mean he won't be a burr in your saddle or anything like that, a thorn in your side. But to that point, the one thing you can't have, and this isn't just for Malik Monk, this is really for any basketball player, in my opinion, is you can't have a guy out there looking like he has to think about his role. Like, you have to have complete understanding of your role. And when Doug Christie talked about, I want Malik to do this for the first 5 minutes, we make subs, and now you're this guy, you're having him think about his role on the floor, which is, to me, the worst part of coaching a basketball player. You have to give this guy a definitive role to be who he is at all times. And that kind of parlays into what I've always talked about, at least when I come off as like this, DeMar DeRozan apologist, or the ones who just doesn't get upset.
Okay.
I know. Well, you come off as the DeMar DeRozan hater, so like it's a yin and a yang. But it certainly is why I say it's like guys have to be who they are, and you have to play to their strengths, and you hope to have. If you need a point guard, you should have a point guard. You need a point guard. They don't have a point guard necessarily, so they're having to make do with what they have, and hopefully it works out for them and they can find some lightning in the bottle. Hopefully Domantas Sabonis is healthy, because we're seeing him bring up the ball more again now that he's been back, and that's something I think is going to be beneficial for them. But to Brendan's point, yeah, I think DeRozan has filled that role nicely. Sometimes it's been Zach LaVine, but I love the fact that they're pushing pace. Seems to be a focal point, and they usually push pace when Malik Monk is in the lineup as well. So, yeah, it's one game. We'll see where it goes. If I was to bet, I think they're going to continue with what's worked. And obviously, they got to win against Portland. They'll just keep rolling it through until they suffer that loss, and then they'll probably reassess.
Just to clarify really quick, the whole optimizing guys, put them in situations where they're comfortable and not have to think. That's not like the starting lineup is doing opposite of that from the league, right?
Right. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, because the first Doug is talking about for the first 5 minutes, I need you as a playmaker. I need you as a point guard. I don't need you as that burner who goes out there and gets buckets. And I think it's completely been a mental fog for him as he tries to navigate a new position. Because look, we've all talked about since he's been a member of the Kings, he has a fantastic playmaking ability. He runs the 2-man game with Domantas Sabonis better than anybody on the team, and that's even before De'Aaron Fox got traded. And so, to me, those guys need to play together. And to your point, Brendan, when you were talking about having that second unit and how he looks with the second unit, Doug talked about that. He's like, when we bring in Valanciunas or LaRavia or whoever it may be, having that switch changes for him to where now he has to play a different style to be a different guy. And it's just not something I feel is advantageous for the Sacramento Kings.
Yeah, so for me, look, when Mike Brown made the move to put Malik Monk into the starting lineup, it was out of desperation. Like, the team wasn't playing well. He was trying to grasping at straws at that point. And certainly Malik is a squeaky wheel. and made sure that everyone knew that he wanted to start and that he thought he should be starting. This isn't a bad thing. This is Malik. This is who he is. And most NBA players do want to start. And I don't blame Malik for wanting to start. It just the way that it's worked out. And I've said this a bunch of times. I don't care if it's Malik or it's Levine or it's DeRozan. One of these three had to go to the bench. Like you got three dudes in the starting lineup who are not very good defensively. And when that's the case, that puts so much pressure on the other two guys. And I'm not going to say that like Domantas Sabonis is an all-world defender. He's a very good defender, and like the advanced metrics of him, as a position defender, like hold up. He's just not a shot blocker. Keegan Murray has been absolutely wonderful as a defender, but when you have three guys who don't play defense in the starting lineup, and Malik and DeMar and Levine, it just makes for like a really awkward situation. And so for me, I think this makes a ton of sense, but it's not easy. And one of these guys either had to raise their hand or Doug was going to have to make a tough decision. And it feels like for right now, they may have made a decision, but I'm with Sean. I'm not convinced that this is something that's going to finish out the season or anything else. The team just looks better. And, I think when we look at the Portland game, you do have to admit that Portland's not very good. They had played better as of late. They're a physical team. They're young. They're aggressive. They had a couple of guys on the bench, but like, to be honest with you, those guys have been on the bench for a lot of games this year, whether it's Grant or Ayton or, Robert Williams. Those are the three guys that missed. You took a young team to the woodshed and you showed them how to play the game last night. And I think the ball movement was great. I think the player movement was even better. Everyone was sharing. I'm just completely shocked that somehow they only come up with 24 assists. They only had like 74 shots on basket, and for them to score 128 points on 74 shots, I think, is just wild. I think DeRozan looked like the best version of himself for this team. Like there's a different version of DeMar DeRozan that's great for other teams, but for this specific team, I thought he was tremendous. He took 10 shots, and he also got to the free throw line 11 times. So that means he had the ball like another 5 times that he shot the ball. 15 shots, 15 like opportunities for DeMar DeRozan is probably right for him right now in his career. And the fact that he had 10 assists was spectacular. I thought Zach LaVine was absolutely incredible. I thought that Keegan Murray was great in the beginning of the game and great in the end of the game. He disappeared in the whole middle. And I thought Keon Ellis did exactly what he does. He's so chaotic. And I mean, he had 6 steals. He, completely changed the complexity of the game as a defender. And then you had Sabonis, who looks, I don't know how Sabonis is doing this right now. I don't. Like Sabonis literally had I think a grade 2 ankle sprain like a week and a half ago. And all of a sudden he's played like 38 minutes in 3 consecutive games, 3 games in 4 nights, and he looks like he's getting stronger, not like he's falling apart. So I thought that was one of the best team performances we've seen from this team. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that Malik Monk came off the bench and gave you this crazy spark that he always gave this team as a 6-man. And it kind of got back to basics. So
I would agree. And the one thing I also want to ask you guys about, Sean, I know you weren't there for Christie's presser. You were in the locker room. I'm assuming that you heard it. But one of the things that Doug mentioned is while he was talking about Malik embracing that bench role, and embracing whatever role they throw in front of him, he said that everything they say about Malik isn't true. And how I took that was that we've heard Doug, we've heard Mike say that Malik has willingly embraced that bench role. But at least from what I've heard, all the behind the scenes stuff is that Malik actually doesn't really love that bench role. And he's told us himself that he would prefer to start, which is a very normal thing. Everybody wants to start, right? But I think we have seen him embrace that. But all the behind the scenes stuff, honestly, what I've heard on my end is that he doesn't really love that. Did you guys take what Doug said, everything they say about Malik isn't true, as him addressing that?
I don't know. I thought it was a weird comment, to be honest. It almost meant like, I wonder if it's things that have followed him from Charlotte to LA and prior to Sacramento, because since he's been here, I mean, he's talked about it. Like, he's been humbled like tremendously. He was, as he looks at it, he's fortunate to be here because he was almost out of the league, which is just wild to think about, And so, yeah, there might be critics out there for him. I don't think there is many critics anymore. I think he's kind of put up, but again, to your point, like, he embraces every role. Like, if you ask him, and if he, he might make a slick comment every now and then and say that's why he should be starting or whatever. Like, I don't know that it's is boisterous enough to suck the energy out of a room. Like, he is absolutely, I mean, you saw him even with the confusion. I kept looking down at the bench, like, is something wrong with Malik, before we figured out that no, he's just not starting. And they ended up having a miscommunication there. I mean, he's up, he's engaged, he's applauding his teammates, he's trying to fire them up. I mean, he's doing exactly what he's always done. And that's why, to me, I've never, short of him just walking out there during player intros, I've never seen any difference from Malik Monk as a starter or Malik Monk as a bench player or as a six man, in the sense of what his energy is and his embracing of his role. Now, seeing him as a starter in this iteration of the Kings following the trade deadline, where he has to be that starting point guard, like I said, navigating those fields of how him trying to think about his role and think about how he's supposed to play basketball. It's not coming as instinctually because he's adjusting to a new role. Like, that's difficult. And that's something that it has to be figured out, but that just gets figured out with a starting quality point guard and maybe some roster maneuvers. However it happens, I don't think that there's any noise necessarily that is toxic as it pertains to Malik Monk's desire to start. He thinks he's a starting level 2 guard. I mean, he thinks he's better than that, guys. Like, he thinks he can be an all-star caliber player. So every player is going to have the highest opinion of themselves. That's just how this league works, and how the mentality of all these athletes are. So even a guy who's buried on the bench who never gets to play is going to think that if they just had the right opportunity, they'd be an all-star type talent, and this team would be winning way more games than they are. So you have to understand the mentality of a professional athlete. And I think Malik Monk is a unique one, but it's certainly one that's an important one to this team. As you guys all know, I always say that he's the most important player to this team. But he'll do whatever is necessary. And I think Doug Christie, if he didn't know that before, he's found out about that. But I think it's a misrepresentation to say that he's the things you hear about him aren't true. I'm like, what are you talking about? Well, all we've ever heard about him has been since he's been in Sacramento, and how he's played has been glowing. Like, no one's sitting there killing him.
Yeah, I think that there is a reputation that Malik had before here. And I think the reputation isn't as a bad guy, it's as probably an immature person. And I think he's grown up a lot. And I also think that, like, sometimes when you're bouncing around, and it doesn't matter what walk of life you're in, you could not be a good employee at a bunch of different places, or not be the best employee. And then you stumble into some job that is just perfect for you, and they surround you with pieces that make you comfortable, and all of a sudden you just flourish. And that's how I've always looked at Malik. Like, Malik has always been super fun with us. Well,
and he's that way with his teammates too. It's not even just like me. Everyone he surrounds himself with there's a joy, there's a playfulness,
Yeah,
And
he called me an MFer last night again, and he's done that probably 200 times since I've known him.
You're
and
a
it's
little
fine.
bit of an MFer.
Yeah,
definitely an MFer.
it's fine. It's
Also, why
fine
am I
though.
censoring myself?
Yeah. So, but I think it's funny because, like, there is a way about him that, like, in the wrong situation, in a losing situation, I think maybe more than anything else, could come across as, like, super immature or not serious. And to me, that's not who he is as a basketball player. I think, like,
No.
he has been a breath of fresh air here in Sacramento. And you know what? Like, before we get too far, let's talk about Underdog. If you haven't been listening to the podcast, we are, of course, brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Right now, if you're just hanging out and you got nothing going on, go download the Underdog app, give it a look, check it out. I think with baseball starting up, it's even more fun to play Underdog, because it gives you, like, so many different variables that you can look at. Like, I know that a lot of times my friend Kyle Madsen over on the Insiders likes to choose first inning for pitchers, like whether they'll give up a run in the first inning or not, as one of his choices for Underdog.
But
And
then
you
you're
can say,
cooked. You could potentially be cooked by the end of the first inning.
you can be cooked by the first inning, but a lot of pitchers don't give up anything in the first inning. And
Sure,
if you look at their splits, you can sometimes come across some guys who never ever give up anything in the first inning. So I think between baseball and football and of course the NBA basketball stuff going on, and then we have the NCAA tournament, Underdog is just like a way to enhance your viewing pleasure, to have a little bit of money on something. So it's super simple. You just choose more or less. For us, if you go on and you download the app, use the code KingsBeat, all one word, to get, I think it's a free play and matching or bonus credit up to $1,000. So give it a check, give it a look. It's cool. It's definitely, for me, it's the best of all the daily fantasy sports stuff out there. So let's just get to the disclaimer. Of course, you must be 18 or over and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, or text NEXT STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY.
I think you gotta pick up the pace, like
you're supposed to
in New York, please call a text line 1-800.
Yeah, we got it done. That's all that matters.
You did. I think Sean and I should start ranking your reads, and I would say that one
I could do that.
About middle of the pack.
I think see, and that might be true, but I think it's the best one we've heard from him.
You said that last episode, Sean.
He's just keeps raising the bar. He's just getting better.
Getting better. That's all. I did miss the other night. I had Demonis Sabonis 12 rebounds. He finished with 12 rebounds. I needed more than 12 rebounds. And he came out of the game with like 4 minutes left. And it was like, oh, he got a rebound at like the 6-minute mark in the fourth. And I'm like, he's not going to get it. And Matt George kept saying, oh, he's going to get it. And then he did not get it.
I think last night you and I both had Severino strikeouts. And I think the rest of our play may have been different, but mine didn't work out. We did get the Sevy strikeouts, but how'd that go for you last night?
Yeah, it went good, except for the fact that instead of doing a power play, a flex play, I did a power play. So I had to get all of mine right, and I missed on one, which was my fault for just being too aggressive.
I am guilty of almost always doing the power plays because I have the utmost confidence, and I have no reason to because I have definitely lost more money than I've made. Hate to admit it.
All right. Okay, let's get back into it. We got all kinds of stuff to talk about.
Can we just point out too, by the way, because I know that any realist out there who's heard us talk about the Kings over the past 20 minutes or so of this podcast might think that we're talking so glowingly about what they did against the Portland Trailblazers team, who had been playing well since the deadline. I'll give them that, but also without someone like DeAndre Ayton and Jeremy Grant, and look, I always say you can't help who you're going up against, but to get out of that 7-game homestand 3-4 when it started off 2-0 doesn't make me feel any better about the way they've been playing or how they approach these games and what lies ahead for them, because let's face it, this was I'm going to say awful homestand. I think they were able to salvage it being a little bit less than awful, but this one was a clunker. And I don't know where you guys come down on that.
Big Jeremy Grant fan over there, huh?
You know the answer to that.
He's got big Jeremy Grant energy.
Right.
But I mean, Jeremy Grant does score the ball.
Yeah. Yes, he obviously does make an impact on this Portland team. And I think your comments have been more salary considered.
Yes, absolutely.
More so than anything.
Well, no, it said he doesn't rebound.
Doesn't rebound either.
There's a couple things, but yeah.
There's a few.
He's over there overrated.
Right. Yeah. That's exactly how Sean is on press row, actually. Just so
I cheer and jeer a lot, don't I?
Absolutely. Yeah. And then you guys just share ice cream like the cutest couple that you are.
Lady in the Tramp style.
Exactly. Hey, I got that reference. I would agree with you. I think that there were some bright spots. Like obviously the win against Cleveland is an extremely encouraging moment. It doesn't even matter, honestly, that Darius Garland wasn't playing or anything. Like you handed the team their 13th, 16th
13th.
loss, something like that. Yeah.
13th loss, yeah.
It's ridiculous. That team has hardly lost all season. Say back-to-back, no Garland, whatever you want. That's an impressive win for the Kings.
And no Levine for the Kings, right?
Right. No Levine and no Malik.
Domas.
No Domas. That's right.
Yeah, no Domas.
That's right. Super impressive win for the Kings. It seemed like the second half of that OKC game, from everything they expressed, it seemed like they liked a lot of what they saw. Personally, I kind of thought that it helped that you went 10 of 13 from 3 in that third quarter. And I don't really know so much about the fourth quarter, but there's moments of positive play, I guess. But I would agree with you for the most part. Like, it was a very disappointing homestand, especially when you're fighting to remain in the play-in. You're only half a game above Dallas right now, and in a competitive spot where, James, you asked me last episode, do I think that they won't make the play-in, or is there a chance of that? And honestly, at that point, I'm like, I don't think there's a chance. And I don't know that I was necessarily as aware as maybe I should have been at that moment of how narrow the gap really was. I still will say I'm not a believer in Dallas because they're getting guys back, but I think there's going to be an adjustment period there. I still think the Kings are fine in making the play-in, but it's a question now. And I think that's partially because you disappointed a bit on this homestand, and now you got a road trip. You got 3 more home games, 9 games left on the season. 4 to 6 of them are going to be without Jake LaRavia for whatever that's worth. So, definitely a disappointing stand that I think ideally you wanted to see the new guys start to mesh a little bit. I think we were getting at the point where the growing pains were never going to be completely in the rear view, but you would hope that they would have been learned upon a little bit and improved. And I don't think that we quite got that opportunity necessarily with Domas being out, Malik being out, and various different injuries, but they definitely did disappoint during this homestand.
Yeah, I think the Bulls loss is the one that stands out, where you're up 19 in the first half, and then you literally you just shit the bed. That's a game that you had to have, and you didn't get it. And I don't exactly know what happened. Outside of that, like, the Bucks are a good team with Dame or without. You gave them a run, and then I think everyone knew that they were going to lose the back-to-back against the Celtics and the OKC. Whether they had all of their players or not, those are just 2 teams that are better than them right now. And so I thought a 3-4 homestand is definitely disappointing. A 4-3 homestand would have felt a little bit better, but you would have had to steal a win to go 5-2, and I didn't. You thought that might happen, especially with the Bucks, but it didn't. And so, yeah, not a great homestand, but I think when you do take care of business against the Blazers, you set yourself up for this 6-game road trip where you do have an opportunity. Like, you have some momentum, you have some, you are mostly healthy outside of the LaRavia injury, which you mentioned. LaRavia is out 7 to 10 days, so people don't know. He has a bone bruise in his left thumb, and he's going to be out for just a bit. But overall, I think it was a disappointing homestand, and I think there was a point where the confidence was kind of shook, and that's not something that I fully expected from this team, because they always have been a confident group. But man, we're talking 5 games and 7 nights at home. Like, I don't think I've seen a homestand like this in maybe like 8 or 9 years, where all of a sudden we had 2 sets of back-to-backs on a homestand. This was really, really difficult. And when you add in the Malik Monk illness, when you add in some of the other bumps and bruises this team has, I don't know that we could have expected a ton better than what we got, Sean, especially with Domantas Sabonis only playing the last three games of it.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot of frustrations among fans, media alike, about what this team is and what they're doing, what they're capable of, and how inconsistent they've been. And I know we all have different opinions as it comes to like what's the biggest problem is, but I think to me the thing that is maybe the most disappointing is you get a game last night from Zach LaVine, who really came out to set a tone and take advantage of some lesser opposition for certain. I mean, they couldn't stop him. I mean, there really wasn't anybody there who was able to do it. Brendan's back from his smoke break, so we were talking about
That is crazy.
We were talking about how I said I know there's a lot of mixed opinions based on problems with this team, and I think the one thing I didn't account for was the ups and downs of Zach LaVine and just how aggressive he has not been to take advantage of scoring opportunities when they arise. He's certainly looking to be way more unselfish than he should be. And I think last night was a step in the right direction. And I don't know how they maintain that. And I really wanted to ask him that question in the post-game press conference. I fell short on it a little bit. I almost brought it up in the locker room when I saw him, but that to me continues to kind of stand out like I don't even know a sore thumb necessarily, but I feel like if this team is going to have the success that they desire, he has to be the focal point of the offense. And, you know, it's him and DeRozan for sure. And certainly it's a committee, but more than anything, he has to be the guy to be able to carry them offensively. And I feel like that's going to be their best way to compete for a postseason spot, play-in tournament, whatever it is. But even if they're trying to get out of the play-in tournament, particularly against these one and dones, like you have to have Zach LaVine as a factor. And maybe it's just as simple as teams being able to take him out of actions, because let's be honest, I mean, you guys have seen like they don't run a lot of things to get him going, and I wonder how much that is hurting them. But not sure where you guys land on that, but to me that is probably the biggest problem. And even in talking to him following who'd they play before the Portland Trailblazers, OKC, certainly he identified that in the locker room after that game as the biggest problem on the team is what they're doing offensively, because he likes where they're doing defensively. And I kind of tend to agree is, you know, some of the stuff that they're running defensively shows a give a damn about them. They've improved from what we saw, at least in the initial installment of this new team since the deadline. So yeah, it's a head scratcher.
Yeah. So for me, like just a real quick breakdown against the Blazers. The Kings, again, they only shot 74 shots, which is like a total anomaly. This team averages 90 shots a game on the season, and I'm not sure why they took so few shots. They
took so few shots because they finished like 65% or something like that.
They also had 27 free throw attempts.
Well,
yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah. I know, but those are numbers. It's still the advanced statistics of it. Like you typically would have got more shots. This team plays with better pace than that, and 74 shots is really low. They out rebounded the Blazers by a ton, although they gave up a bunch of offensive rebounds. But here's my point: DeRozan took 10 shots. Sabonis took 11. Keegan Murray took 11. Keon Ellis took 7. Malik Monk took 9, and Zach LaVine took 18. If we prorate that to like a 90 shot night, that's like 13 shots, 20 to 21 shots, 13 shots, 13 shots, 10 shots, 12 shots for your key guys. The shot distribution in last night's game to me was the best it's been all season long. This is how your team needs to be. And when you talked about it, Sean, the fact that LaVine goes 13 of 18 from the field, Zach LaVine should be taking 18 shots per game, like straight up.
At minimum.
Yeah, like I am A-okay if he's at 21, 22. Like he is a very, very efficient scorer. And so but the breakdown of how everybody is involved, everybody's taking 10 or 11 shots, except for Keon, who takes a few less than everybody else. Your top 6 guys, that's how it should look every night. And then if you add in the extra couple of shots because you crank up the offense, the Kings shot 65% from the field, which is absolutely bonkers. I mean, to score 128 points on 74 shot attempts is wild.
Did you guys see did you see the note on that, by the way?
Yeah, it's only happened like 27 times in the history of the game.
Well, at least in the franchise. I mean, it was. I got it right here as I read it. But it's wild to see that type of effectiveness. I mean, you're talking. Let me get right over here. Here we are. 64.9% from the floor, 4th highest field goal percentage in a single game in franchise history, the highest by the Kings since 2001. Kings were pretty good back then, March 20th, 2001, when they were 65.4%. And then just for context, in terms of this season alone, if they can go 50% or better from the floor, which obviously kind of opens up a bigger question, because like they're not a good 3-point shooting team. Like we all agree, right? They're bottom of the league, probably 2021, I think currently.
I mean, if they shot 50 a game, maybe this looks different.
See, and that's my point. Like I think you've got a lot of mid-range guys. You have guys that can get to the paint too. And look, certainly when you run into some size, and the Portland Trailblazers last night and who they were playing outside of Donovan Clingan are not the biggest team there is. I think they're able to take advantage of it. Brendan, go back to that Dallas game where they were absolutely using the Twin Towers against the Mavericks. Anyway, but 20-5 shooting 500 or better from the floor. Like that's obviously not going to happen every single night, and that hasn't happened because they're not a good shooting team. But if you're able to untap, maybe their focus shouldn't be for all these threes, and I know that's what the modern NBA is telling everyone to do. But when you don't have the personnel, you got to do something different.
The 3-point thing is a little weird to me. First of all, the 50 number is like, I think Doug even clarified, like, hey, we're aiming for 50, knowing that if you aim for that number, you're realistically going to reach like the 45 mark or so, right? Because 50 would 45, be 50 would be a league record. Like, that's ridiculous. Boston doesn't shoot 53s, on a nightly basis at least. But Zach LaVine last night, as a team, they scored 60 points in the paint, 30 of 35 shooting in the paint. That is ridiculous. And Zach LaVine last night, Doug Christie wants him to take 10 threes, right? He's 13 of 18 from the field, but he was 2 of 5 from 3. That leaves him at what? 11 of 13 from 2. And I want to say that I know at least one of those 2 misses were in the final moments. He took some weird mid-range. The second one might have also been at that point. I know he missed his last 2 shots in that game. He was 13 of 16 at one point, which is the whole Zach LaVine thing. It's that not only he scores efficiently from many levels of the floor, but he and Doug Christie both mentioned the pace as an aspect there. And I think that's something you were pointing to a little bit there, Sean, that I think it just makes the game easier. I think that goes for any team. I think that is like a blanket statement for any NBA team, that these extremely talented players, you get them in transition, it simplifies the game. And that's a lot easier said than done. But I think aspects like when Domas gets a rebound, he had 19 last night. Push it yourself and let the other guys just sprint down there, and some of these other guys as well, but don't get aboard and like pivot a couple times and then just try to find somebody. And next thing you know, it's in a half court set. And honestly, the Kings, like Doug always is mentioning this beautiful basketball is what he wants to accomplish. Right. And you guys would know better than I, but I feel like that's, somewhat drawing a parallel with the early 2000 Kings. Like they played beautifully. Right. And a lot of times, honestly, the Kings have been pretty ugly basketball. And I think when you get them in pace is where you start to see that be a little bit smoother. The decisions are easier and more simplified. And Zach's able to get downhill. And DeMar leaning into that point guard role, he obviously became a much better passer when he was in San Antonio. I think he's very capable in that aspect. But I still do think it bogs down a little bit when DeMar's like, hey, I'm setting everybody else up, but I kind of need mine at the same time, which is understandable. DeMar DeRozan he just passed 25,000 career points, I believe it is. He's top 30 all time in the NBA.
Well,
so as much as he's got his foot on the line, I'm like, this is what this guy does. How much you can't it's the teach an old dog new tricks, right?
It's funny. I noticed, sorry, James, but just real quick, like I noticed watching Sabonis with DeRozan last night, and DeRozan's literally pointing to guys to hit DeRozan immediately. And I've always brought it up. It's one of the things that, James and some of the people who get a little anti DeRozan, it's like, yeah, but they're like, that's what they're encouraging him to do that. And especially a lot of it comes from Domantas Sabonis.
Yeah, but here's the problem though. I'll just again, the game before, right? They took 80, I think it was 84 shots as a team. And of the 84 shots, 24 of them came from DeMar DeRozan. And of the 24, 20 of them came from inside the 3-point line, right? And his percentage was okay. It wasn't great. I think he was 8 of 24 from the field. But the fact is, if you're trying to shoot 40 or 45 3-pointers and one guy is taking 20 of your 84 shots inside the 3-point line, there's no way to ever get there. And the other problem is that DeMar DeRozan, it doesn't matter how good he is at shooting the mid-range shot, because he is very good. He's one of the great mid-range shooters that we've seen in the last like 4 decades. But the problem is there's no way to maintain or to keep up with your opponent when they're shooting and making a certain percentage of threes and you're not. And so even like DeRozan right now on the season is shooting like 49% from 10 to 16 feet. He's shooting from 16 to 3-point point range. He's shooting 45%. So just like mathematically, when you talked about the Brennan, the points in the paint, they went 30 to 35, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's 85.7% from the field. So it's a 2-point shot attempt. So 85.7 times 2 is you're looking at basically like 1.7 something, 1.8 points per possession, right? That's remarkable. If you can score that at, 85% of your shots in the paint every single night, you're going to win a ton of basketball games. Then you go to the 3-point line. If you're shooting 40% from 3 or even 35%, 35.5, which is what the Kings are shooting, that's 1.05, 1.06 points per possession. So again, it's a mathematical equation. When you get to a guy who on the season shooting 49% from 10 to 16 feet, it's like 0.98 points per possession. And from 16 feet to 3-point line, which he lives in, he's taken 340 shots. He's averaging 45% from the field. So that's 0.9 points per possession. So my point is that if you start adding up all these numbers, if every single time down the field you're scoring 0.9 and the other team is scoring 1.2, or they're doing what you did against this team and go in and get up to 1.7 or 1.8 points per possession by scoring at the rim, there's no way for you to keep up long term. Like you're going to fall behind by 0.2, 0.3, 0.4 points every single time down the court. And that means that you have to do something extraordinary in order to catch up, or you have to take way more shots in order to catch up. And so that's where, like, again, it's fine that DeMar DeRozan takes mid-range jump shots, but what he can't do is he can't take 20 of them because the field goal percentage isn't going to be there. And you can't recover from the fact. So again, take away, I think he was 8 for 24 from the field. Let's take away his 4 3-point shots. So he's 8 for 20. So what is that percentage wise? He's shooting 40% on the rest of his shots. 40% is 0.8 points per possession. You're just getting clubbed. There's no way to keep
you're
up
just
in a
assuming
game.
also that other team over there is shooting at a scorching whatever from behind the, and like for example the Thunder.
Just go leave
usually are.
average.
They usually are. Well,
Yeah.
especially, and it's funny because like, especially the Thunder, when the Kings had their season high, I think it was for threes, and you still got absolutely curb stomped. So it was
23 threes, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
13
but
points scored.
and like, look, this isn't like you have to look at each game as an individual game and all that stuff. But the fact is, you can't just fall behind on one type of shot like the whole game and have it be such a huge percentage of the shots that you take.
Yeah.
You know
Well,
what I mean?
and to that point too, I think the remedy isn't necessarily like DeMar taking less shots or anything like that. To me, it's more on the coaching staff to say, if you want other actions, you better call them, because you've got guys who literally don't shoot the ball, and DeMar DeRozan doesn't need an invitation to shoot the fucking ball. You know what I mean?
No, I get that, but what would the team look like if DeMar, just like for playing devil's advocate, if he wasn't there and the other players had to shoot the ball? Because that's where I think
he is
that
here
this
though.
team,
But that's
yeah.
If your uncle was your mother, it is here. You know what I mean? Like he is here, and so
Yeah,
this
but
is the
that's
team
where,
that you have.
as a coach, you can also limit, number one, shot attempts, but number two, minutes.
No, but to that point though, if you want guys like Keegan Murray to take shots, you need to call actions for them.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing that, like that's one of the frustrating parts. I think in the past couple weeks we've seen a very aggressive Keegan Murray.
Yeah.
And I think that that's been very encouraging, but it's also a very small sample size. And when Zach LaVine isn't taking shots, Again, the one guy and we already know what Domantas Sabonis when he's on there, he's not taking a bulk of amount of shots either because that's just not who he is. This season has been better certainly, but since they've made the trade deadline, and it hasn't, those attempts haven't been there. So again, like it's incumbent upon guys to do it. They got to do it themselves.
Yeah, you're not getting easy shots for Domas.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brenden.
While I do agree specifically with Zach, I think there is also an aspect of like you could have dudes out there that set him up a little bit better. And obviously the Kings don't really have that. They don't have a traditional point guard out here. When Chicago was great with Zach and DeMar, it was because they had Lonzo Ball out there.
Yep.
And Lonzo was orchestrating everything, and there's an aspect of it coming down the floor and like, hey, one of these guys hasn't touched it in a sec right now. And you're having DeMar be that guy of trying to initiate for everybody else the same way that you were kind of asking Malik to adjust. But I think that DeMar has dealt with this adjustment in the past, specifically when he was on San Antonio and they had him be like, hey, you're the point guard of this team right now. So I think that, maybe it's an easier adjustment for DeMar, but you still don't see those stretches of what I mentioned earlier of DeMar also needs his, and so sometimes the flow can get a little messed up there. But as much as I agree with you, it is on Zach to go out and get his. And I thought he did that more aggressively last night. Probably make your life a little easier if you had somebody that was orchestrating that for you.
No, I agree. Okay, let's get to a couple other things. Number one, the NBA kind of got shocked today. The Memphis Grizzlies fired Taylor Jenkins. Yeah. My brain went sideways there.
Also, by the way, I have a factor cap before we get out of here. We're bringing it back.
You son of a... No,
yeah.
But after 6 months of not having one? Come on.
I know. I literally just remembered that this used to be a thing. So we're trying to bring it back.
Okay.
And I'm requiring Sean to do a sound effect when James teases it in.
I don't do sound effects. First of all, I like how he went, we are bringing it back. This guy went rogue.
We don't have to. We don't have to. We don't have to, but
no, I'm good with
it. It's all of our podcasts. It's everybody's podcast. So
Sean, you could come up with a segment, like you could, do something here, but
okay, so before we get into Taylor Jenkins firing, let's say that if you're watching here on YouTube and you don't mind, give us a thumbs up, rating or review wherever you're listening to podcasts, subscribe to the channel, all that stuff. Taylor Jenkins, I don't know what in the Sam hell just happened here. I think the story behind this is going to be much more like wild at the end of the day. I don't believe that this is just you can't beat great teams and we're not comfortable where you're at. You got 9 games left in the season. This is a 5th seed in the Western Conference. They're 3 games out of like the 2nd seed. What in the world just happened? Because I don't always love Taylor Jenkins, like as a coach, like watching some of his antics and stuff. But this dude has a program, and this team has played hard for even last year when they were so depleted, they still played hard. And I'm confused because he seems like a really good coach, and he just got unceremoniously dispatched with like 8 or 9 games left in the season. Bizarre.
What's the staple, like the characteristic that we've always talked about when the Memphis Grizzlies are playing without their star player, John Morant?
They make you play the entire 48 minutes.
They win.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're maniacs.
And
that's complimentary.
Who's their star player? Who's coming up on free agency? To me, it's this is a team. Taylor Jenkins has been a guy. He's the winningest coach in Grizzlies history. He's gone out there and called. This is a homegrown team for them. Like, what's their biggest free agent trade? Was Marcus Smart. Trying to think.
They already dumped him.
Good. Yeah.
Right. Wasn't great.
Well, they
everybody else
traded him. Yeah.
Right. But everybody else has been like homegrown. You talk about Jaren Jackson, John Morant, Desmond Bane. Their core.
I think Luke Kennard is the only player on their basic roster that plays at all that wasn't drafted by them. That's right. Absolutely crazy.
And then here you are, literally a week or so away from hosting would they host, or depending on where they finish?
They're like the 4 or 5, so right. Yeah, they could host.
It's crazy. I think it's I think you talk about stability in organizations, and it starts with how your GM or whoever your figurehead is in the front office and who is the head coach, How is that relationship? And the good teams have the most solid relationships, but it's a players' league, man. I think there's going to be some interesting things learned over the next few days and weeks ahead. But I will say this from a King standpoint, and who knows what the front office looks like in a few weeks when the season is over, or month, depending on how
We'll
far
get
they
to
go.
that in a sec.
Yeah, who knows what the coaching landscape looks like, and again, I think that does bear consideration depending upon how certain things go. What does that mean for Doug Christie? Who knows? But the coaching landscape just changed dramatically with one addition in the pool, in the available pool now, in Taylor Jenkins. Who knows if he wants to jump to another opportunity or not? But I think it's something you need to consider.
Which the dude you're hinting at of like star player and all that is Ja, right?
Yeah, I said John Morant. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but Ja's under contract for 3 more years.
He has, yes, but I'm talking about impending free agency coming up. Like there's eyes on him.
Yeah, but I mean, after this season, he's got 3 more years. I mean, Jaren Jackson has 1 more year left on his deal, so he's a free agent as well. But he is a free agent. But man, Ja's there. I think he has a player option for the final year. So you're looking at like 2+ seasons. Go ahead.
But all it takes is a player being like, I don't want to be here anymore, right? I think that's become even more
there's ways to get
common
out
in today's NBA. And I mean, I'll say, like, I've heard Ja's name floated out about in things that the Kings could try to entertain this offseason. And there's a handful of names, but like Ja's name has been floated out there as, could he potentially want to move on from Memphis? And I think the weirdest aspect is doing this with 9 games left. Even if you already felt like that there was a question if he had lost the locker room or whatever it may have been, like clearly he had a successful tenure with the Grizzlies, but sometimes you got to move on and go to your next step in the process. I think the most cliche and typical one people mention is going from Mark Jackson to Steve Kerr. And while I do think that has a very unique circumstances when it comes to that aspect, there's something to that of needing to take that next step. And I don't know necessarily that I feel like that with Memphis, but letting him go with 9 games left is probably the weirdest aspect to me in all this. Can you guys recall any instance of specifically a coach that, I mean, they're well above 500 and like you mentioned earlier, fighting for home court advantage in the postseason, and he gets fired less than 10 games with
George
left in the
Karl
regular
was
season.
fired after he was coach of the year, right?
He won 59 games and
But
was
with
coach of the year, but
this many
was
games
fired
left in the
after the
season?
season. No.
Right.
After the
It's
season,
the
yeah.
9 games left in the season specifically that is crazy to me.
Yeah, even I remember the Cavs fired Dave Blatt mid-season, and they were way over 500. They were, I mean, to be honest, he was the coach of the All-Star game and was fired before the All-Star game and didn't get to go coach. They gave it to the whoever took over at Ty Lue or whoever it was. Yeah,
And you know
so
what,
but
James,
it's weird.
to that point, what's interesting too is like we're talking about how Memphis 44-29 for what it's worth. It's not like they've had a losing record over their last 10. They're 500 in their last 10. They just lost a game. Denver, who's third for what it's worth, is also 5-5 in their last 10. But like, there's nothing that's just glaring to where you're like, oh, I don't like this. The one thing that I might give it is you're 19-18 on the road. So at home, you're a considerably better team, 25-11, 26-20 within conference, 10-5 within your division. You're currently now just behind the Lakers, but in the loss column, you have identical records, 44-29. So it's a tiebreaker there. Lakers right above you. And then you're a game and a half, 2 games out from Denver.
I think they're also 2 games under 500 since the change of the calendar year. They haven't been great.
Yeah.
As of late,
I think
but again, 9 games left is crazy.
We could also look at this and say, okay, what if the what if factor? What if they actually finish okay here? They're the 4 seed. They win the first round. They make it to the second. Maybe they're just preemptively striking. So they're taking out the like success or lack of success in the playoffs so they don't have to deal with it. Because what happens if he goes, if they somehow go on a run and they make it to the Western Conference Finals and now, we got to keep the coach. And so it's possible that they want to cut him now because, and again, I think we'll learn more. Something happened here. Like this doesn't, not only that, they fired 2 assistants as well. Like this whole thing spun out and they promoted a guy who's in his first year as an NBA assistant coach, who coached in Europe last year. He's a dude from Finland. I don't even know how to say his name. Yeah, just absolutely bizarre
Well, you-
situation.
Recruiting Lauri Markkanen or something.
Well, and you also have, I mean, just for, kind of bring it back to the Kings, you have a former Kings assistant, Jason March, who's still there,
Mhm.
and Anthony Carter, right?
Former Kings
still
assistant.
there. Former Kings assistant, obviously the father to Devin Carter. And what's wild too, guys, like if the season were to end today, just the playoff picture, and I love that NBA.com does have what the standings currently look like in terms of the brackets and what the matchups would be. Lakers and Grizzlies. And to me, that might be in the Western Conference. The Thunder get right now would be the winner of the Kings and Dallas. Well, yeah, Kings, Dallas Mavericks, whatever, the play-in tournament and all that stuff. But outside of a Rockets Warriors, which might be slightly more intriguing to most, I'd say Lakers Grizzlies would be probably the most attractive matchup in the Western Conference in the first round.
Yeah, it's totally bizarre. And like, look, I think what we're gonna hear, like Mike Budenholzer is on the ropes in Phoenix. Nick Nurse might be on the ropes in
definitely.
Philly. You look around the league. I think I looked today. The odds were, I think the Kings were like a plus 600 to land Taylor Jenkins, but there were like 3 teams above them. But look at all the coaches and look at all the jobs, because you can throw in the Spurs. We have no idea if Pop is going to be back or not next season. So
He won't.
Kings, you don't think so?
Really?
No.
Have
Okay.
you heard any similar smoke? Mike
I'm
Brown?
there's just no, they're not going to put him in that position.
Yeah, I hope not. I mean,
No.
again, he had a massive.
Again, the whole, hey, Pop, what do you want to do? You can do. I mean, just keep him around
Yeah.
the game, keep him around the organization, absolutely. But the grind of the season, no.
Okay, so we look at Memphis. We're probably looking at Philadelphia with Phoenix, Sacramento, and possibly San Antonio. You're already looking at 5 coaches. I think teams are going to start leveraging for a guy like Taylor Jenkins. If he wants to coach next year, he's not going to have a problem. I think there will be a job next year. Although we'll see how it goes.
And even outside of that, I think there's some first-time head coaches out there, in my opinion, like even Sam Cassell, who for some reason doesn't have a job yet. I think that could be coming closer to a reality of him getting an NBA head coaching job. But we'll see. I think there's going to be some really good names out there. And if you're the Kings, as much in love with Doug Christie as you may or may not be, now that you're more, the record is coming closer to 500 now with him as head coach. No matter where you sit, whether you're all for him or not, what's it hurt to take a look at the coaching landscape, especially once you figure out what your front office looks like, whether you continue going at the Monty McNair path or you don't.
Yeah, and before we get to Brendan's factor cap, let's get to the business of basketball. Hey, look.
I'm no.
Yay, Brendan.
Sean, don't look disappointed. Fucking do something.
I was.
Don't give me that face. What the hell?
You were.
I'm tired of you. No, you're lame. You're boring, and you just sit there. Do something, or don't give me attitude. I'm sick and tired of this.
Well, but
Brendan's not taking shit from no one today.
It was a curveball. I was expecting your hype,
and I'm
that
sure
one.
the listeners appreciate it. You
keep
throw
them
no
on their
curveballs.
toes.
You throw no curveballs.
I'm here for this
I'm
battle.
sick of the heaters.
But I could hit a curveball.
I'm here for this battle. Wes Wilcox decided this week to kind of stun a few people and take the University of Utah general manager job. And he is leaving the Sacramento Kings. Last night was his last game in the building. He's got to go figure out what exactly the portal is and what NIL money is and go spend, because he's only got a couple of days to spend it. Kind of a out of left field move. And now the tandem of Monty and Wes is no more. What does this mean? Long term, short term? What does it mean for Monty McNair? Where are you guys at with the departure of Wes Wilcox? With again 9 games left in the season. Sean?
Yeah, go ahead, you little shit.
I don't have a sound effect.
Go ahead, you little bitch.
The first thing that comes to mind is, are we losing a couple listeners to our podcast? Because the Wilcox boys really liked tapping into the Kings Beat podcast. So
They're still
hope
gonna
that,
listen.
I mean, what
hope
are they
so.
going to listen to Utah podcast? Do we think those exist?
The University of Utah, not even
University of
Jazz
Utah
podcast.
podcasts.
There might be. I'm sure there is.
Should we
Anyway,
be transferring over or what?
What
No,
they
not
don't
me,
say
as
there,
in-
they don't say the F word, they say frick, and they don't say the S word, they say shoot.
I would never.
Golly gee willikers.
None of
First
us.
of all,
we are all
that is cap because there are absolute foul mouth people in Utah. They're everywhere. So, anyway, yes, back to what I know. Look, I mean, regardless, their front office now looks dramatically different. I mean, he was in control of a lot of the day to day, in control of so much of the basketball operations, and no matter, again, if you continue on with Monty McNair or there's an exit there in the off season or when the season comes to an end, or even before, I didn't know that we would be saying goodbye to Wes with, games remaining, but they have a draft to prepare for. Obviously the situation that he's taken in Utah, you're a GM. All these college teams have GMs now because of NIL. And, as James outlined, there's a whole lot of money to be had there. And, I think it's a great program. I think it's one that can be on the rise. He's got a familiarity with the coach, so it makes sense. I mean, you go where you may not have total clarity on what exists here beyond this season, and you go to some place that's going to be a little bit more stable and is, frankly, stuff that you've been doing already. You've got the experience to do it. So, congratulations to him. I think it's a level up. I think in my dealings with him, he's always been very professional, and somebody that is I think a resource, and I think he's helped Monty tremendously. I think he's helped this organization, but now it leaves a little bit of a hole, and it leaves a little bit of a question mark as to what this thing looks like going forward. So I think again, whether you keep Monty McNair or you don't, I think the Kings organization is going to have a roster spot to fill in that front office, and it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
So I'm already forgetting the wording, but you just said something along the lines of Utah being like a well set up position.
In terms of, I mean, look, he has familiarity with that head coach. Utah, that college program, is a beautiful campus. I mean, it was really shown off during All-Star Weekend a few years back. It is, I think it's a program that has had a great deal of success and it hasn't lately. And now with NIL, you need all the help you can get. The landscape has changed. So I think they can do a lot of success there. I think they can have a great deal of success there, especially with what exists within NIL and the money that's involved. But it is a beautiful campus. It's a beautiful facility. I'm pretty familiar with it myself. And yeah, man.
I realize I'm connecting dots, but I think a lot of listeners' follow-up questions would be, is you expressing that Utah has a bright outlook say anything about Sacramento's outlook?
Well, no, what I said was if you're going into something that isn't, if you have a little bit of lack of transparency as to what exists in your role beyond this season with Sacramento, and you have something that is so much more stable that is on the table where you're also leveling up, how do you say no to that?
Right. Yeah, which I think is a fair point, and it's definitely a mix-up for the Kings. The impression I've gotten a lot is that the players that, and not even just players, but I think people around the organization in general, Wes is the person that's more, the front-facing one, the one that's around more often. I think back to when Monty was hired. I remember reading an article about how, who's the guy that he was under that is now in Philly? Why am I drawing a blank? Daryl Morey.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking about Wes. I was like, Wes wasn't in Philly.
No, you're
right.
good. Yeah. That Morey was the more behind the scenes, and that Monty was the guy that communicated with people more often. And I think that those roles have sort of been reversed for Monty, that he's the behind the scene one, and that Wes is more so the one that interacts with the players day to day. And, that makes me curious a little bit about how some of these players that I think have already questionable situations coming into this offseason may feel about the person that they're probably communicating with most often, now being out the door. And I don't know, honestly, how much to put into that, but definitely crosses my mind. And yeah, happy for Wes that he got a decent offer. I'm sure it's going to be a little bit of a process moving the family out there and everything, but definitely a little bit of change for the Kings organization. And I'll say, I think the fact that we're hearing so many potential candidates for the next GM probably says something about
What are you hearing there?
Monty's
What are you
job
hearing there,
security
Brenden?
at this point.
What are you hearing?
Sean, I'm sure that you have heard things as well. But I'm just saying the fact that there are names out there for potential candidates, I think speaks to the level of security that Monty may have in his position.
Yeah. Okay. So I like Wes too. I mean, I've had a ton of conversations with Wes, and not all of them go well. Like to be honest, I think there's a healthy amount of tension. There has been in certain amount of conversations that I've had with him between he and I. Um, I think that he did take a communicative role, but it was a very like it was different. Like, I know he talks to everybody inside. I know he talks to the players a lot. He is the voice of the front office to the players. And I don't know how Monty would deal with that himself, because that's just not a role that Monty has taken on with this team. I also think that like there isn't a lot of communication from, the front office, Wes, Monty to local media, and there's reasons for that. Like that's neither here nor there why they communicate or they don't communicate. For me, I don't know if I would consider this a level up, as Sean called it. I mean, you're leaving the best basketball league in the world to go to the college game, where you're going to have to learn a whole new way of bringing in players and the portal and NIL and paying players and
Which
like
Sean prefaced is like pretty unprecedented, right?
well,
Yeah, I mean,
he
it's
is like
brand
sort
new.
of the first NBA guy to go down to the college, but this is going to happen more often
But
because
even
because
though
the
he
college game is expanding.
Right.
but even though he acted as if he didn't have the title, he wasn't the GM. So taking over his own program, going from an NBA assistant GM to actually a GM, really kind of sets the table. I mean, look, that guy's going to be working in the NBA again eventually.
Wait, who?
In my opinion,
Wes.
Wes Wilcox.
Okay, gotcha.
Right. So it is a level up. Make no mistake, it's a level up also because it's security, it's job security. You just found something that you're on stable ground, and you're leaving something that may have not been on stable ground, have some question marks about what your future looks like.
Oh, I
So
totally agree with that.
that's the level up. It's not level up because he wants to be at Utah over being at an NBA team, but as we all know, he has to get he got passed up as a GM initially when Monty McNair got hired, and he got partnered with Monty McNair. I mean, they were competing for the same role, much like Jay Triano and Mike Brown were competing for the same role, and they end up on the same staff together. So
They didn't know each other. I think that's something that like
right.
Wes and Monty did not know each other before they were paired up. And like, look, over the last, I mean, they lasted 5 years together, 4.5 years, whatever it is. I think they did a really good job. Like, look, they turned a franchise around that was a complete mess. It took them a couple of years during a pandemic, but they were able to snap a 16-year playoff streak. They have left as of right now. Is there some questionable contracts on the books? Sure, but nothing that's like 5 years long. They've got Zach LaVine at $95 million over the next 2 years combined. That's not. I mean, it looks bad on paper, but it's 2 years. I mean, it's
Well,
the NBA.
You're not going to bat 1,000. Like
No.
I
But
think they've drafted well for the most part.
I think they've drafted okay. I mean, the Keegan Murray pick was a top 4 pick, and the Halliburton draft was good. And you were able to go get a star level player using the number 12 pick. But I think the other picks, you could definitely have some questions. And the fact that they don't have a single player that's like under 24 years old on the roster or really in the system, that's probably an issue that, that they're going to have to deal with eventually, or someone else would. But they do have, starting on July 1st, if they lose their pick this year, they've got 9 first-round picks. They've got a bunch of second-round picks. The cupboards aren't bare. So if someone else does take over this role, like they are taking over something that you can actually work with. You can work with DeMar DeRozan's contract, whether you keep him for a year and then buy out the last year, or keep him for 2 years, or you trade him somewhere this summer and use his $25 million to go get something else. Like there isn't a lot of like the only monstrous contract you have is Domantas Sabonis, and he's an All NBA player. So I think that they've done a good job of leaving the franchise in a place. I do think that they were too inactive as a group. I do think that they peaked in year one of this iteration of the Kings, and that's not customary. Usually you grow from year one and you're able to build something, and they weren't, especially with a group of 25, 26, 27-year-old players. And all of a sudden they got way older and are on the way down the hill, where you thought that they were on the move. So I like Wes. I wish him well. But this wasn't a perfect tenure. And it also was probably one of the better tenures or probably was the best tenure since the Jeff Petrie era of Kings basketball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That it was. So, I mean, and who knows, maybe it continues. And I say get a little creative with some of these titles within the basketball operations. I think there's,
you don't think they're already creative with Alvin's title?
There are, yeah. And play, what is it? Team engagement or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, he's an ambassador, and yeah, he's been a little bit more present. But he was present. People forget, man. Like I think I'm not trying to take away from the seat that is by Vivek Ranadive at games, because it is always interesting to see who's sitting with him. But let's not pretend like Vlade wasn't there over the past 2 years either.
No, but it's been more recently.
Has it?
You don't think so?
No.
Okay.
Not really. I mean, especially on the road, like every time we go to, he's there. Look, again, a position of influence. Certainly, he's got Vivek's ear. That hasn't changed before.
But he's not the only one.
Changed after.
Like
no,
Alvin's right there, right?
Well,
right.
yeah,
Alvin,
but I will also say this: if Vlade had the influence that everyone's acting like he had, De'Aaron Fox would not have been traded. I don't believe that. Like that was De'Aaron Fox was Vlade's guy, crowning achievement. Vlade showed up for the San Antonio game to give De'Aaron a big hug and say goodbye.
he also signed Zach LaVine to his
offer sheet
to the offer sheet. But anyway, but no, I'm just saying creative in the sense that you don't really have a true president of basketball operations. There's other little titles that could, and some of these people, like I would argue, and again, I'm just one person, but just my own observation. Like I think you had Wes Wilcox in a position of doing too much. I think he had a lot on his plate that probably shouldn't have been there, especially for a person who has a title of an assistant GM. Vlade had 2 assistant GMs. Scott Perry had 2 assistant GMs, 3 maybe.
Actually, there were 3. There was a point where Vlade had 3. He had Scott Perry, he had Ken Catanella, and he had Peja.
Yeah, and so there are titles that you can come up with. I think you need to add to the department, and but then again, more cooks in the kitchen sometimes doesn't always get you a better meal. So I don't know. There's a lot of this year's going to be no different than the year before and year before and year before. There's always decisions that have to be made about what's going on within your organization. Now you've got some open positions, and you have decisions that have to be made. We'll see what they do. See if they get creative.
I mean, like you said, there's always decisions that need to be taking place. There shouldn't always need to be decisions that need to take place this high up within your organization. Like the frequency of it is a little ridiculous. And
I mean,
yeah, but these guys been here 5 years.
5 years,
I would agree for sure. I agree with that. I just felt like, and correct me if I'm wrong, because obviously you guys been here a lot longer than I, but like what I feel like I picked up on fairly quickly was that there wasn't a like chemistry between the front office and coaching staff. Honestly, what Mike Brown initially mentioned when he got the job, the horizontal and vertical alignment, I think that he worded that very well as like what I feel like I've been looking for, and what has been lacking from this organization for a long time is that you're running into another potential scenario where You're hiring a front office member and not letting them pick their head coach. And that brings me back to like, hey, you hired the guy to do the job that has the work experience, and let them do the job, which includes picking their head coach. And it's not always that simple, I'm aware, but like
that also includes allowing a head
be.
coach. It also includes allowing a head coach to pick their assistants.
Yeah. It should be that simple.
Right, but that's the second step. Like that should be after the front office member picks their coach.
They're all related, but I will say this. Yes, in a perfect world, the head coach, the GM is picking, or whoever your president, whatever that ends up being, is picking your head coach. I get it. And I think I said this recently on the last pod. No GM is taking the job unless they're comfortable and with who the head coach, if you're in that situation. So there is a little bit there that gets, in my opinion, a little overblown. It's not a great dynamic. It's not a great look. But at the end of the day, if you're the GM, right, wrong, or indifferent, okay, if you're Monty McNair, it's not just your voice, okay? And that's not exclusive to Sacramento. Right. So anyone who takes this job, if they're not comfortable with that, don't take the job.
Yep. And I would say a good coach is a good coach. And if you can see that a coach has the ear of his players and he's proven that he's been able to do the job, even if it's a job that, like was a very difficult job this season, where you fired a head coach, where you had multiple, trades that happened. You lost multiple assistant coaches during the year. This was not an easy job to take over. So my point would be that if a GM is coming in and knows that Doug Christie is part of the equation, maybe he is, maybe he isn't. But if in this scenario, that is what's happening, like you have to support him the right way, and you got to get him what he needs. And then you got to build a relationship with the guy, and you got to buy in, because that's what the owner wants. That's what the owner would want if this is how it works out. And you gotta buy in, and if either that or don't take the job.
And for the record, when I say you're not the only voice, that's actually a good thing. Like, I'm not, like, I know a lot of people say, oh, Steve Vivek meddling, the meddling owner, all these things. It's like, no, like, I don't think Monty wants just his voice. Like, he has a team around him for a reason. Like, it's a select few that they come up to decisions for a reason. Did I freeze? Can you hear me?
No, we got you.
I think Brenden froze.
that he did freeze in a great look.
I didn't know if you could hear me. It was a great
back.
look.
I'm back. I heard none of that, but I'm
you
back.
Froze like this.
Yeah, you had.
Sounds about right.
No, what I was saying to Brenden was just, I don't think anybody wants just their voice. And again, I'm not. Look, you want all the input. You want to be able to crowdsource the people that you're close to, and you hire people to give you ammunition to be able to make a decision. Ultimately, it's going to be your call, but it's not just your voice, if that makes sense. And I don't even think Monty McNair wants it to be just his voice. Now, certainly, the someone who might be sarcastic like me would, make a joke about ownership or whatever thing. Again, not exclusive to Sacramento. Tons of teams have that dynamic. And I think for the most part, they have been able to make the decisions that they've wanted to make over the span of 5 years.
Yeah, okay. I would say that, like, to your point of like, multiple voices are going to be part of damn near any scenario of sports franchises. Hey, you own the team, you're paying for it. Like, you're going to have a voice. Don't get me wrong. I guess my point of concern when it comes to talking about hiring a new front office member is that in my mind, there's not only an aspect of, yes, having an understanding and a genuine willingness to be like, hey, Doug's my next head coach. And not saying that that's the case. I think that we are moving towards that, but working with this hypothetical, I think it points towards there's only 30 jobs thing. And I worry that there are also people that would take the job and be like, yeah, I guess I got to deal with that. But after a year, it's probably going to be a different situation anyways.
Well, yeah. And someone's looking at it and going, well, they're still paying Mike Brown.
Right.
Yeah. So. I mean, I think if you're going to make a decision with Doug and you're going to bring Doug back, he's going to be the coach for the next 2 years, because you're still paying Mike. And what you don't want to do is start paying 3 dudes. That's never conducive to good business.
Well, and for what it's worth, I got asked on air, like Vivek has never been stingy about, like, he's paid multiple coaches plenty of times, right? Like, you don't think that because he's paying Mike, he's going to be stingy about whoever he's paying next.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't. And that's the one thing. Again, that's, it doesn't mean I'm an apologist for Vivek Ranadive. I've seen ownership groups get a little short arms when it comes to their pocket, reaching for the pocketbook. That's not really the case here. I mean,
okay. I would say
luxury
that
tax is a different situation, right?
But
but I'd also say Luke Walton, when Luke Walton,
that's
like they kept Luke on for a year plus, and they kept him on to open the season, which is something that they've done in the past. They keep someone in to open a season because then when you give someone an interim job, it's not the full job, and you don't have to pay him as much. So
yeah, I mean, there are ways to cut corners, but not in the ways of making your team better. And for example, Luke Walton didn't get to hire Brian Shaw, who he wanted, because Brian Shaw was going to command more than $1 million for an assistant coaching position, and that wasn't going to be the case. So that's why you got to, if you're having head coaching and you're going to invest in a head coach, allow them to hire who they want.
okay, we've hit an hour and 31 minutes. Brendan, is your factor?
Let's pass. Let's pass. Let's go next.
No, let's do it. Let's do it because you promised.
All right, let's go quick. Don't
then. Waste their time. Right. Yeah, let me get my.
Right. I got 3 of them. I got 3 quick ones. Limited clarity here. Factor cap. One of Zach, DeMar, or Domas will not be on the team next year.
Fact.
Same here. Factor cap. The Kings will have a new GM going into next year.
I think
this is a guesstimate, Sean. I don't want to hear your bullshit. Yeah, I don't know. I need a hard answer here.
I'm going to lean towards fact, but I also think there's a way. I'm not saying that Monty McNair is gone, but I think there's a way to manipulate titles. And so maybe somebody maybe Monty moves into a president of basketball operation type role and hires a GM, that kind of thing. Or Monty has a different title than GM and they hire somebody else to oversee, and then that person becomes the figurehead of the department. I don't know. Ultimately, I think there's going to be a new person running point on the GM landscape, if that makes sense.
Wait, no, it does make sense, but it's super weird what you just said, to be honest. I've never heard, this time around with this Kings organization, I haven't heard anything about the idea.
Like think of what RC Buford and has a title of. It's not just Spurs general manager, right? It's a
president of basketball operations,
right? So maybe you
have him taking Wes's role and somebody else filling his.
Yeah, but maybe that. But in my opinion, that role
it'd probably be GM more head
public.
Of analytics.
No. I think you misunderstand. Somebody taking a more senior role over. Like, let's say that Monty McNair remains on the team. I think somebody would come in here and possibly take a more dominant role over the basketball ops department to where they become the figurehead. And I think Monty probably still keeps his title as GM, but literally this other person could be that face, that GM, if you will, and in a public aspect. Whereas, Monty was obviously the in the West dynamic, the person that was in front of the cameras and doing the press conference stuff. I think you might have a different figurehead, if you will.
So it's hiring a new president of basketball operations, and it's the aspect of
and again,
organizations have a different sort of tier of importance, I guess, for lack of a better word, between GM.
I don't think Monty would take that. I think
maybe not.
He would take like hiring a different person to be his Wes.
Right. And again, you're asking me to forecast. I'm just saying,
right.
If I'm leaning one way, I would say that it could be something like that. Maybe Monty takes a different opportunity. Maybe he's fired, or maybe he's here for another 5 years. Who knows? But I think the front office will look different. And if I was leaning one way or another, I would say that playing the stupid game, that yes, it would be a fact.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I meant to ask this one first, a little bit of a different direction, but factor cap. Zach LaVine is the best player on the Kings right now.
No, Cap.
This is a close one, I feel like, because I honestly, personally, I struggle with Domas.
Question.
Domas is the one to me. And
how
DeMar is in the conversation, but
how do you define best player?
Who is the most impactful towards winning?
I think it's
okay.
Domas.
No, let me throw it towards you, Sean. How would you define it? I
don't know
because I
think
outside of that.
I think most talented player and best player are different discussions, and I think
totally
oftentimes
agree.
people will mesh the two together, and
Which
they
means
do.
you're not optimizing the talent, or
No. Like you can have, for example, like I would always say, let's use Domantas Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox. I don't think it was always the case that De'Aaron Fox was the best player on the team, but he certainly was the most talented player on the team.
Right.
And I think it was a coin flip with those two. I don't feel that way with Zach. I feel like every single game you go out and you know that Domantas Sabonis is going to have between 16 and 24 points. He's going to have between 12 and 18 rebounds. He's going to have between 5 and 7 assists. With Zach LaVine, I don't think we know what he's going to have one night to the next. And so consistency plays a part of it. Like one of them for me is the best scorer on the team,
Yeah,
the
that's
number one
exactly.
offensive option. The other one is the best player. And I think Domas is
which
the best
I would
player.
argue it's easier to consistently rebound, set your teammates up than it is to put the ball in the basket.
But to that point, Brendan, his deficiencies on defense are so bad.
Unfortunately, I don't know who you're talking about.
Yeah, well, no, I'm talking about Zach LaVine in this category, in this case. So in my mind, no, I don't think he's the best player. I do think he should be their top best scorer. But
Yes,
I don't.
I agree.
Yeah,
He's their number one option.
he should be their number one option.
Is there anybody?
I don't
else
think
in
there's always the number one
It goes
option.
Domas, Zach, no question.
What are you talking about in terms of
Like,
best player?
is DeMar, Malik in the conversation at all?
I think Malik is the most important player on the team. I've always said that in terms of
which I think you're a little
everything.
crazy for what it's worth.
No, I mean to me it's like
spiritually.
I don't think that changes. Like I really don't think that changes. I think what you've seen again, he's struggled to find his role. What's the team done? Like
Sean,
you know what I mean? Like it's not
I
good.
really like Malik. I think that he is like perennial 6 man of the year candidate if he wants to be that, right? To be blunt, I think your team is ass if Malik is your best player.
But also, no, I'm just saying. I'm talking about most important player. There's a difference there. There's a huge difference. I think your best player right now, you could argue, is either Domantas Sabonis or DeMar DeRozan. And in my mind, it's Domantas Sabonis.
So does best player mean like most variable? That if they are playing well, that you are playing well?
I think it's
no, because
for me, it's consensus that Domantas Sabonis is a top 15 or 20 player in the league.
Right.
I don't think anyone else on this team is.
Nobody else is getting an all NBA.
I would agree that Domas is first. I was just more curious if there was a conversation at this point of who is two. After Domas, like, is it just clearly Zach?
I think who it is, who it should be, and who it is different. I think number two would probably be DeMar DeRozan.
Yeah, who's playing that role right now? Yeah, and who will be there next year? It will most likely be Zach LaVine being that. I think, like, forecasting right now, I think DeMar is probably the guy who's your number one scoring option, which I don't think is, again, optimizing your team. And
it's funny. It's funny because I'm on the same page with you. Like, as much as I'm as much as I understand the value that DeMar DeRozan plays right now, whether he should or should not be, like right now he is, and I say always play to his strengths. But damn it, Zach LaVine, it's incumbent upon you, it's incumbent upon Keegan Murray, and it's incumbent upon Domantas Sabonis to be able to take those opportunities when they present themselves. And if you don't do that, you only have yourselves to blame for DeMar DeRozan taking them from you.
Yeah, the player that we saw yesterday, DeMar DeRozan, we saw yesterday, he could play for this team for another 5 years. I'd never say another word about it. And I don't mean he has to have 10 assists, just the way he played the game, the way he moved the ball, the way that he was part of a system and not just an outlier. Like, he could play here for as long as he wants. The problem is that's 1 out of, and maybe 10. No, like this season is probably 10 out of 70 something games where he's been that player where he's moving the ball and sharing.
I'll say this, where he's impacted winning, and again,
he's impacted winning without being the player that I'd want him to be.
Yeah. That's true. I agree with that. You're right. But
I think he's impacted winning in games where it's like, okay, Jesus H. Christ, you took way too many shots, but half of them went in and you won the game. I get it.
Right.
Yep. So earlier I said factor cap, one of Zach, DeMar, Domas will be gone this offseason. We all said cap. If I change that to DeMar will be gone this offseason, factor cap.
Fact.
I don't know.
To you, you're confident that one of the three, but
Yeah.
not that it's
Yeah.
specifically DeMar.
Correct.
Okay.
I'm pretty confident that there's very little way to trade Zach LaVine.
Yeah, I don't
And-
think there's a way to trade Jack.
And it's not because he's a horrible player. It's just there's
No,
too many things.
the
stacked up
contract is
against him.
wild.
Right.
Yeah, and it's only 2 years, but it's wild.
But you have, that's the thing. I mean, you have so many movable pieces, and you have, like, they have some flexibility here, and that's whether they want to use it or not. Like, they've got attractive trade possibilities again. You have some draft capital, but you have guys that are, if they want to go in this direction and they want to just try to add something or have someone take a huge step forward, you know, they're in a unique position. And I think this job, aside from maybe some of the drama that this city and organization tends to attract, I do think it's I actually do think if and when, whether it be coaching or whether it be front office, I do think that this would be an attractive situation, if that makes sense. Maybe not right away, but I do think that this would be an attractive situation.
I also feel like you can turn this thing around. I don't
100%.
I don't think you have to strip it bare. I think you can turn it around, but you have to be savvy and you got to be really, really aggressive.
And again, someone listening to this might go, "Hey, why would you say that? Mike Brown got screwed." Yeah, but he got paid, so they took care of him.
Sure.
They have $17 to not coach.
Right.
They have assets. They could nail this. I just worry about. I feel like we've seen this front office try to be aggressive or try to be patient and make sure that, hey, like, at least how I've read it, that like, hey, we want to make sure that whatever move we make is the right one, that it doesn't come back to bite us in the future. I don't know that you have that patience available to you this offseason is all. And then if it's not on the table, what are you going to do?
But I'm going to, like, Sean and I both feel the same way that there will be a move. We also feel the same way that there will be someone else making that move.
Fair enough.
And so, like, that's where I'm not going to, and that's where, again, Keegan Murray is Amani and Wes draft pick.
I mean,
like, we don't know what his value is to the next guy.
Of Monty's guy, right? The same way that Sean, you mentioned earlier that Vlade or that De'Aaron is Vlade's guy. Like your prime lottery pick, especially the first one of your tenure, like that is who you really are kind of attaching yourself to.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, we got to wrap this thing up.
Sure
what do we got for final thoughts?
I'll go. It's baseball season. I'm so happy. Like, good weather is right around the corner. To get rid of this rain. I know we need it. I'll always preface it and say I know we need it. Just rain at night. Yeah, baseball season. I'm really excited for Monday, seeing baseball in Sacramento. Sorry, James. I know that's going to be a little bit of a weird dynamic for you as an A's fan.
No, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Kind of looking forward to seeing what a day-to-day grind is for baseball. And yeah, man, can't wait.
I have been attempting to, as you guys know, and have been educating me throughout this. I've had to drop my any sort of basketball fandom throughout the whole course of this coverage.
My question is, do I have to do the same for, like, should I feel guilty for wearing an A's hat right now when I'm going to go cover them on Sunday?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, are you going to do it regularly?
I got to get Hurley hats.
Look,
I am, but honestly, I don't really give a shit about the team. Like,
I know that I'm a very open Giants fan, but I also don't cover them daily. And when I do, you're not going to see a single. Yes, but when I do, you don't see any paraphernalia on me.
You just got to be a pro. That's
right.
all.
But I'm not going to do it daily. Like, I can still be a professional.
Yeah, you're not going to wear. You're not going to wear A's hat to cover the A's.
Of course. Yeah. I'm not going to wear anything baseball related. But like, I'm asking, do I have to lose any baseball fandom because the A's are in Sacramento?
No.
All right.
You don't have to lose your fandom. You just have to look at your team. You look at your team objectively.
Be objective.
Like you have to do your job.
Of course. Yeah. I can do that.
Be a pro. You're a pro. You got
and
this.
Sometimes it just happens organically. Like, you get a little too close to it and it's like, oh, so all of a sudden the thing I grew up with isn't the same. So
you have definitely shared that story, and I swear that you're talking about the Giants every time.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah. All right. Final thoughts from James.
Got to look out that window.
I'm excited for baseball. I am. I'm excited to go hang out with you guys on Monday.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I am. I'm excited to go check it out. This is going to be different. It's going to be fun. I think it's going to add a different dynamic to Sacramento for the next couple of years. And and I hope they stay forever, and
Same.
that Fisher has to sell the team.
I just care that they stay forever.
Yeah.
Odds on that happening? Pretty low.
For the A's, I'll say 25%.
That's not bad.
Of them
take-
staying.
I mean, of the A's staying, yeah, maybe, I don't know.
I think between
of
A's
attracting a
staying,
different team,
Which takes Vegas falling through.
or does it? I mean, look, I don't have a lot of faith in Vegas happening necessarily. Yes, could the A's stay? Yes. Could Fisher sell? Yes. But let's pretend that doesn't happen.
Expansion.
I still feel that the Sacramento will make a hell of a case to be able to show that they can support a team.
I agree. I
It's
agree.
like when
100%.
New Orleans went to OKC,
Correct.
Hurricane Katrina, and proved
Yep.
they deserved a team.
Yep. I think it's
Brendan's heard
very,
me talk about this before.
very line.
What do you know?
He's following along.
All right, we're wrapping this thing up. We've gone way too long. An
let's go.
hour and 46 minutes. Thanks for watching the King Speed podcast. If you're
Thanks.
again watching on YouTube and you don't mind, give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Go to thekingspeed.com, become a premium subscriber, support everything that we do here. Lastly, jump on board with Underdog.
Everything?
Use the promo code KingsBeat to get a whole bunch of cool stuff. And what else? We're Blue Wire Podcast. So for Box 40, Sean Cunningham and Brenden Nunes from the Kings Pulse Podcast, I'm James Ham, Kings Sat for ESPN 1320, the Kings Beat. We'll see you very soon.
Jesus Christ.
Oh.